right. Well, let's see now. Now it's not when you get the file in there. There it is. All right, can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Say yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. All right, now let's look at this. What we have is, I don't know exactly how far we got last time, but I think we got past Omicron, and Omicron is a short O in Greek. Omega is a long O. Got to kind of remember that. This would be read up here where my mouse is as ho, because see, there's a rough breathing over the Omicron. So that gets a ha, ho, ho, mikron, mikron. And that's mikron, and the accent's on the Omicron right here. So that's an Omicron. And it's the O as in obey or omit. So it gets the O sound. Apostolos. We got two O's, Omicrons in there. Apostolos. And that's a compound word. Apo is a preposition from, and stolos is someone that is sent. And so it's someone sent. Octo. Octo. And our word octopus comes from that. Octo is 8. And orthos. And so they see the Omicron, orthos. Now we have the omega here, which is a long O. My mouse is over it, right there. So that's omega, that's a long O. We'll get to that a little bit later. Now then, the word orthodoxy, that comes from that word. Orthos is the first part, and doxa is to glorify. So that's the straight or the right method of glorifying. And orthopedic shoes supposedly straighten out your feet. Orthodontist straightens out your teeth. And those all come from Greek words. And so we have several, the word ortho is found in a lot of English words. And then notice this has the rough breathing over it. Ho, look, ostos, holocaustos. And holocaustos is holocaust, something kind of bad. Catholicos. That's kind of the idea of universal. That word's not in the Bible, but that's where the Roman Catholic, I don't call them Catholic, I call them Roman Catholic Church get their name. And they get their name from that. And they claim to be the universal church, which of course there is a universal church. There's nothing wrong with that term. It's just that they're not in accordance with the scriptures. Prophetes. Pro and thetes is to speak. This is a prophet, one who speaks for another. Logos. That's one of the words translated word. That's in John 1:1 and 2. The beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was being God. Same was in the beginning with God. So we see there in that passage, logos is used. Now, this basic root also gets a verb. We'll come to a verb later from it. Lego is the verb. Nomos, and that is the word law. And Deuteronomy, and then nomi, that last four letters come from nomos, and that's the second giving of the law after they had wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Then we have scopos, and our words telescope, microscope, and so forth come from that word. Telescope, microscope, and scope. Now, we have some other words down here, hode, and heyday, tode, hodos. Now this doesn't have an eta in it, but these are words here. Hode, heyday, todo, hodos. And hodos is a word for word. Oikodomeo, and the word dome is the word house. Incidentally, in Russian language, moj dom is my house. Moj and the oikodomo, domia, it would be Greek. Almost the same words. Russian is considered a Hellenic or a Greek language. Homologeo, and that's to say alike. Homos is like. Onoma, name. Oklos, crowd. CROWD, crowd. Any questions? Come to the next letter, pi, and it gets a p sound as in pat, pa, Petros. And notice we have Petros. So Petros would be a rock, and it's usually a pebble, more like a broken off piece of rock. Petra, the next word, is a bedrock. So it's different. Presbyteros, and the Presbyterian Church gets their name from this. They have elders. This is the word for elder. It could be an older man or it could be an elder. You have to look at the context to tell which it is. Now then we have episkopos, and the Episcopalian Church get their name from this. This is an overseer. And so you see the word scopos out here, scopos. And we had scopao earlier up here. And what we have here is scopos is to look at, and epi is upon. So an overseer looks upon things to see how things are going. Parakletos. And this would be the word translated comforter. It can be comforter or exhorter, either one. The context has to tell you. Panoplia. We have a song one of the songbooks, I can't think of the name of it, but it put on the whole armor of God, the whole panoply of God. And the word pan at the beginning of a word in Greek is the word all. So this is all applies, or all the layers, all the full armor. Peripateo. This has come into the English language, peripatetics. And what we have here is to walk around. And it usually, in meaning, it means to walk manner of life. Notice we have the pi sound over and over. There's your pi. There it is again right there, okay? Now then, the next word is, get back to it, hippopotamus. Now, hippopotamus is an interesting word because it's the word hippos is horse, potamos is the river. So a hippopotamus is a river horse. That's the name for it. Right. Purr. Now notice the pi again. Purr. Fire. Puros. Fire.
Yeah, I'm getting out.
Pyromaniac is someone who sets fires. Any questions so far? It's good for you to hear the words here just to see them. Preposition epi, meaning upon. Para, preposition meaning beside. Pos, pro toward or before, and peri is around. Our word perimeter comes from that. Pros, toward, and before, pro, and pros, toward. Proselytos, and probably a proselyte. prosagoge, to go toward or to be led toward, right? Podos is a foot. Podiatrist is a foot doctor. Row, it looks like a P, but it's a R sound, row. R is in run. Rhoda, that's the name of a woman in the book of Acts. I think it's only mentioned one time, but it might be more. But Rhoda is the word for rose. Paradisos, paradise. Petros, Peter, or rock, right? Thronos, again, we have a row again. Thronos, throne. Cretes, the tes, the last three letters is someone who does something, right? Cretes is a critic, someone who judges things. Rome. Now it's got a rough read, Rome. That would be Rome. It's the city of Rome. Okay. Now then, the next one, we got a sigma here. I got to go back up. Now here, one of the letters that has two forms. The only one of the letters that has two forms in Greek. I'm pretty sure Hebrew has maybe 5. It has several that have different forms when at the end of the word. Gary, do you remember how many have different? It's 4 or 5, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
Okay, a sigma. This is the sigma. And when it's in the word, it's like this right here. And when it's at the end of the word, it looks like much like our letter S. It gets the S sound, as in sit, sigma. Sophites. The sophist is someone who uses arguments that are fallacious, and he probably knows they're fallacious, and he uses them to deceive people. That's a sophist. Apostasia. I think the accent is right there. I don't have it on here. Apostasy. That means to stand from. Stasia is to stand, and apo is from. Crisis. The word crisis comes from it. Scandalon. And this is a scandal, but our word scandal comes from it, but it actually is to cause someone to stumble. Okay. Seismos. This is an earthquake. Our word seismograph comes from it. Satanos. That's Satan. That really comes from a Hebrew word. It's a transliterated Hebrew word. Philosophia. And this is a compound word. Philo is affection for or love for. Sophia is wisdom. Love of wisdom. That's what philosophy is. Stephanos. That's Stephen. That's the word for crown as well. There's 2 words for crown. That's one of them. Sos is a pronoun. Skene, that's skin. And soon is with. Soon ame is to be with somebody. Sozo. And now right here we have a sigma. We have 2 long O's. Sozo, 2 syllables. And the long O is also a vowel. Sozo, I save, or I heal. Could be translated I heal. And that's in the context. Soteria, from the same root as sozo, that's salvation. Soteria. Notice the sigma. Tomos. Okay. The next one, well, let me see. Again, it rolled too far on me. Letter ta, and that's like our T, and it's ta, and it's the T as in towel, like a bath towel you dry yourself with. Pentecostos, and so we have two T's or two tas in it, here and here. Pentecostos. Accent goes on the last syllable. And our word Pentecost comes from. Pente is 5. Topos. The word topology comes from the study of the land, how the land lies. Topology. Talentone. And that's talent, it's a sum of money. Technician, someone who does something, constructs things or builds things. Baptizo. Now notice you got a T, a ta here, baptizo. That's to immerse or dip or plunge. Heteros. Now notice the rough breathing over the epsilon. So it gets a H sound, heteros, and it's become in as an English prefix, heteros, and English, drop the S, and you'll have an English prefix, meaning things of a different nature. Delta, that's a letter delta, the D sound. Despotes. And so despotes is a despot, a ruler who's very strong and could be kind of brutal. Not necessarily, but it could be. We have te, it's kind of like and, but its function is a little bit different than a couple of other words that are translated and. Tasso is it's to arrange, I arrange. Technon is a child. Technon. Telos, the end of something. Tithemi, I place, I set, S-E-T something. Tereo, I guard. Tis, a certain person. Tote, right? And let's go down a little bit. I'll just move this down. Pretty through with them. And I'll show you the file that I want you to kind of work on a little bit, try to get these letters down. Okay? The alphabet. Look too far. Upsilon. It's the U as in our Greek English word virtue. And so it's like the U in virtue. Presbyteros. See the upsilon? Right there's your upsilon. Presbyteros. That's a president or an elder. Synagogue. And so that's the synagogue. Ago is I lead, and agoge is something led. And so you're led together with one another. Soon usually goes with people, right? Hypocrites. That would be someone who's behind a play actor's mask. In the plays, the Greek plays, it would be a man. He would have a bronze face on a stick, and he would hold that face up and talk through it and be one actor. Then he'd move and put a different face mask in front of him. He'd be someone else. So he'd move from character to character. The same person would do several parts. And so that's a hypocrite. Now, the word hypocrite comes from it. Typos. And our word type is the old typewriter. It's a type of something. Our English word type comes from it. Now, type in the Bible is something that God designed to represent something else in the future. Not just an accident, he designed it that way. Sometimes we assume things are types, we may or may not be correct. The Bible calls them a type, it certainly is. I think there are some things that are types that we have a hard time proving it is, but I suspect there are some types that we don't recognize maybe. Now then, we have the upsilon again with a rough breathing on hypocrites. epsilon, but the rough reading gives it an H sound. Hypocrites. Hypocrites. Hugias. 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 Now right here, this is the rough reading also. Hygiene, or English word hygiene comes from it, health. Now, humnos, him. Now, rough breathing again on it. A lot of times that begins a word, it'll have a rough breathing on the epsilon. Quinto, quintos, quintos, quintos. Who are quintos. This is not a diphthong. Who are quintos. Yeah, quintos. Hyacinth, flower. Soon, and notice it gets the epsilon sound that has the rough reading. It's not the beginning word. Soon right here. Noon is now. And meteros is a pronoun also. Hydropoteo. Okay. And polos, many, poly, or English word poly. The epsilon can be translated as a Y or a U. A deuce. A deuce. Notice the rough breathing on the eta. A deuce. Right? Now we're going to go down again. We're almost to the end. We have the letter phi. Now a lot of people pronounce it as phi. I learned it as phi. So we're going to call it phi. And the PH sound, as in our word phone. And our letter F really comes from this. F, PH. Phobia, phobia. That's our first word. Phobia, fear. Philosophia, philosophia, the phi. So that's the love of wisdom or affection for wisdom. Blasphemia, blasphemia. And that's to speak with the desire and intent to hurt someone. Phone, sound. Phone. Our word telephone comes from it. Gramophone and so forth. They have some drive-ins in Oklahoma, started in Oklahoma, sonic drive-ins. They had speakers. You'd go up, pull up to them and push the speaker and order what you wanted. Pharmakia, pharmakia. That's someone who's a witch or a sorcerer. And what they did is they would dispense such things, probably giving people drugs that give them hallucinations, perhaps. We're not even sure. But the word pharmakia, pharmacy, comes from that word, dispensing drugs. Grapho, our word graphic, comes from that. I write, this is a verb. Fogoman. Fogoman is I eat. Pharaoh, I bear. I remember that word because Pharaoh made the children of Israel bear burdens. That's how I remembered that word whenever I was studying this. I just used a memory hook there. So that's how I remembered it. Fantasia, fantasia, fantasy. Fame, I speak. Okay. Philanthropia, that is the affection for people or humans. And anthropia, anthropos is man, mankind. Philos is affection for them. Philandros. That's philia, philos, and that's affection or friendship for man. And that is a man, not a woman. And over here, this philanthropia is affection for mankind, both men and women. Questions? All right. Next letter is key, key. That's a key. CH as in Christ, Christ. Get the CH sound. Christos. And that's the anointed one. It's the same as the Hebrew Messiah. Someone who's anointed. Christianos, Christian. And I'll digress just a moment. I'm convinced that the name Christian is a name that is not exactly synonymous with the child of God. I believe that all Christians are children of God, but not all children of God are Christians. I think a Christian is a person who is a faithful child of God. Now, how do I draw that conclusion? I draw that conclusion because the prophets in Isaiah said that they would have a name, a new name would be given, would be better than that of sons or daughters. And a son or a daughter would be a child. So a child of God is a Christian when they're baptized. As long as they're faithful, they're Christians. But if they turn away, they cease to be a Christian. I think Christian probably means a Christ-like person, one like Christ. And I derive this from the two passages that prophesy of the new name in Isaiah. Isaiah 61, I think, is one of the passages. 56, I think, maybe is the other. Okay. So Christos, Christ, Christian, Christianos. Christianos is not an adjective, it's a noun. We use it as an adjective, Christian this, Christian that, and it's used as an adjective. I don't necessarily say that's wrong, I'm just saying it's not, according to the Bible word, is a noun. And it describes a person. Chronos, and our word chronology comes from it, and that's time. It's a study of time. Parcter, a character, a stamp. Kao, I pour. Ketone, a garment. Helios, that's 1,000, the word for 1,000. Charis, grace. Karma, kara, joy. Kreia, that's need. Techna, child. Take, takeos, suddenly. Tekos. Those are some of our words. Now we got the key C. This is a letter that gets the PSE sound, or the PS sound, like in psychology. PS. Solo, that's one of the words for singing. And that's to sing. I sing, it's a verb. Pseudos, and our English word pseudo, a prefix pseudo comes from it. That's a lie, or something that's false. Say something that's false means to tell a lie. Pseudo-Christos, that's a false Christ. Suke, and the word psyche and our word psychology comes from this word here, suke. Psalmos, psalm, it's a type of psalm. It's from the Hebrew Old Testament. Pseudo-didaskalos, that's a false teacher. That word's only found in 1 Peter chapter 2, nowhere else in the Bible. Pseudo is an adjective describing the teacher, not necessarily describing what he teaches. And a person could teach, I believe a false teacher is someone who teaches and is dishonest. Whereas there are some people that are honestly mistaken. And I believe we are to treat them differently. Yes, all false doctrine is wrong. And there's no doubt about that. But we need to make a distinction between it. Okay? And what is taught. Now, false doctrine needs to be opposed. But we need to be careful that we don't accuse someone of being dishonest when they might just be honestly mistaken. Okay? So we have here pseudo-didaskalos, and that's the false teacher. Saphos, Pseudo-apostolos, that's a false apostle. Okay. Any questions? Last letter, omega. Jesus said, I am the Alpha and the Omega. That meant I'm the first and the last. Omega. That's a long O, as in note. Note. See the long O and note. Hode. Notice the rough reading. Hode. That's an ode. Hosanna. Hosanna. And that's probably a Hebrew word that's derived and brought over into the Greek when they use the term Hosanna for Jesus. Glossa. Our word glossary comes from it. And polyglot. A polyglot was a word. There were several translations of the Bible side by side. Polyglot. Glossary. Glossa. Tongue. That's your tongue, like you can stick out. Tongue. Agonizomai. I agonize. A real strained and hard contest. In the Olympics, the runners were agonizing to try to get that gold medal. They strained themselves as hard as they could to try to get it. And they just put all they had into it. Most of them did. Baptizo, I baptize. And so we got an omega here, baptizo. And that's the idea for plunger immerse. Hode, that's the word we get to later. Hosper, host, that's as, an adverb. Zoe. And that's a word zoo comes from it, and that's life. That's one of the words for life. There's two basic words, bios and zoe. Hoste, that's the next word here, rough reading, hoste. So that, grapho, I write, lego, I say. Now this word means to collect your thoughts and express your collected thoughts in words. That's what that word means, that word means. But notice it's got an omega in it. Any questions? That's our alphabet. Now, we'll get back over to this in just 3 minutes. Have some diphthongs. And what a diphthong is, and we have diphthongs in English just like we do in Greek. And all the languages, well, I can't remember my Hebrew, so long ago. But I know Russian and English and Greek all have diphthongs, where they put two vowels together and it blends together as one sound. And the AI in English, as in the word isle here, is an English diphthong. Alpha iota is a Greek diphthong, pronounced basically the same way as the AI in isle, A-I-S-L-E. Gynekaios, gynecologist, having to do with females. And now over here we have a rough reading over the iota, heresy or a sect. That's someone who would split and form another group. Chi, that's a very common word that means and or even. Again, you have to look at the context. Kainos, this is something that is new in nature. Kainos, there's your I, alpha iota. Ineo. Then we down here, the EI, the epsilon iota, gets an EI sound as in our word reign, like a king, reign of a king, or reigns on a horse. And we have here pathos, and that's a pathos. That is actually, I think he's got a mistake here. Pathos is to convince or to believe. Right? Try, day, and he's telling you to try this word, day, and so that is, it is necessary, binding. It's like your hands are tied. Ace. Baptism is unto or for remission of sins. Actually, that's the word translated for or unto. Haste. Now notice, same letters, but the rough reading over that iota. This has a smooth breathing over the iota. This has a rough breathing with a circumflex. And they look almost alike, but this is the number 1. This is the word unto, tor. This word, I think, is found like 1,200 times in the New Testament, so it's one of those prepositions you'll need to learn. Ame, I am, right? And ame, and so that's ame, right? Any questions? Oi, another diphthong. It's the oi sound, like in oil. I mean, this word oil, oi, oi. And so koine. The oi, koine. Accent on the eta, koine. That's the word common, and that's the word Koine Greek is what we're studying here. The language changed just like our English language has been changing. I remember rules that we had in grammar in high school and junior high. Those rules are not being followed today like they were back when I was in school. And I think they've simplified the language. They've dumbed it down because there are lots of people that are speaking it as a second language. Now, that's what happened to the Greek language. And the purists in the Greek language were just really, they were livid over it. Their language was being corrupted by all those foreigners, Okay, so anyhow, I bet the Brits think that we are corrupting their language here in the United States. Okay. Anyhow, day, ace, ame, koine, oida, not smooth breathing, not a rough breathing over the iota. Oida, I know or I see. I see with the eye of my mind is what that means. Blepo is another word for seeing, but this is to see with the eye of the mind. Oikia, that's a house. And oikos is the household, the people in the house. Again, it's just a different ending. First 3 letters are the same. Oikos, that's your people in the house. Oikia is the house itself, the brick and mortar, the lumber and the walls. Okay. We get this in sauerkraut or tautology. Actually, the word tautology comes from 2 Greek words that have the alpha upsilon in them. And so we have here pao, I cease, I pause something. Autos, see, autos. This is the word self, and automobile is a self-propelled vehicle, say, automatic, it does it by itself. Auto is a genitive form, a possessive form of autos. Arion, okay. You, as in feud. And the Greek word Zeus, the god Zeus, the false god, of course. Zoo, we get that in feud. Same sound as our word feud. Euphone. And so phone is sound, those last 4 letters, sound. And then the U at the beginning of a word in Greek is something that is good. So it's good. That sounds good. Euphemism. You use a word that sounds better than the word that you really wanted to use. Use a euphemism. All right. Now we come down to here. Deuteros. Well, that sounds like a duet, doesn't it? Duet. 2. It's the word second. There's 3 kinds of numbers. There's ordinals and there's cardinal numbers and ordinal numbers. And so we have 3 basic kinds. We'll get to those later. Okay. Cardinal numbers like number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ordinal numbers like 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Those are ordinals. Order. Plura. And that's the fold. Okay. And it could be as in the lungs. and your lungs are full of fluid. Okay, you, it is good. Eulogia, that is a good saying. And our word eulogy comes from this word. Okay, eulogy. English word eulogy. Ooh, that's also a diphthong. That's a ooh as in group. So it gets the ooh sound. And our Greek word akuo, that's I hear. Our English word acoustic or acoustics comes from it. Try, and it says try hutos. And notice there's a rough breathing, so it will be hutos. Hutos. I'm having trouble seeing this.
5 minutes.
I think that should be a rough breathing, hutos. Hutos here now. Notice we have an os, an omicron, and an omega. This is basically a pronoun. This over here is but it's actually an adjective functioning like a pronoun. Over here, this is an adverb. The os ending on a lot of words is the ly ending in English. It's an adverb of manner. So that's basically what it is. And then we have us, and un is therefore. When you see the word therefore, you need to stop and say, what is that word therefore? And ask yourself that when you're interpreting the Bible, because it's going to tell you something, right? Any questions? Our last diphthong, and we'll probably end with that, pretty close to it. It's the upsilon iota. Now, all these diphthongs function like one vowel. And so a diphthong gets one syllable. Doesn't get two syllables, it only gets one syllable. And that's pronounced as we. And so we don't have that sound very much in English. Huios. Notice the rough breathing, huios. And that's the word son. Jesus is the Son of God. Thesia. And that's to be adopted as a son. Okay? Questions? We have another rule here. A gamma before a kappa, or before another gamma, before a key, or a kasi, is to be pronounced as an ng sound. And not agalos, but angelos. Angel, messenger. Now I'm going to try this. I'll be sending this to you. Can you see this on your screen? It says sound when pronouncing. Everyone see it? Yes or no? Tell me.
I don't see what you're saying.
Okay. Well, I'll try to. I have to go back in and try to get it. I'll stop sharing. I'll share again. Here's what I want. Maybe you see it now. Can you see it now? Sound when pronouncing?
Yes.
All right. The worksheet for you to practice, they're not in alphabetical order. So you can practice your letters and also your diphthongs. And so I'll send this to you so you can play with it and practice it. And this will kind of make you learn them. And so there's your diphthongs in there as well. Okay? So if you will, I'll send that to you tonight. Try to, okay? Try to work on that. Any questions?
Can I ask a question about the oo diphthong, if you don't mind?
Sure.
You had two words there. Can I just kind of test and see if I'm pronouncing those right? One is Omicron and the other was Omega. Is it utos and hutos? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I thought that was right. All right, thank you.
All right. All right, now I'm gonna stop recording.